Today we are going to be going over Active Classroom as an overview to get a great idea of all of the amazing resources that are within the platform. In Active Classroom, you're going to find so many great activities that you can use with your students, both in the classroom and remotely. And we have it available for 4th and 5th grade teachers. So we're really excited about sharing this great opportunity with you and this great resource with you. So my name is Heather Marvel. I am the Professional Learning Coordinator with the Social Studies Department. And again, I welcome you for joining us today. With us, we also have Maria Wagner-Benjamin. She is our 4th and 5th grade curriculum specialist. So if you have any questions over the curriculum, she is your go-to person. She's going to put her information into the chat as well. So that way you have her email and you can contact her at any time. So right now within the curriculum, we really encourage you guys to use Active Classroom as a supplement to your instruction. So to really dive into it and think about all of the great things that you can do, how we have in the curriculum with you, like for you, with amazing great resources, and how Active Classroom can play really well with that. You do get into Active Classroom through Clever as well as your students. And so today we have two amazing presenters from the socialstudies.com who are going to work with you and walk you through, again, this, I can't say it enough, this amazing resource. So without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Aaron Willis, and he's going to walk you through everything.
Heather, thank you so much. Let me go here to share my screen and see what I can find. And make sure we're online. Okay, are we seeing the Active Classroom logo, Pam? Ready to go? Excellent. Okay, my name is Dr. Aaron Willis, and I'm the Chief Learning Officer for Social Studies School Service. I'm joined today by my colleague Pam Gothard, who's our Director of Professional Learning, and together both of us are going to be working with you. Pam is going to be manning the, that sounds sexist, manning. She's going to be responding to and working in the chat area. So if you do have any questions that come up, please feel free to post your questions to the chat area. If it's appropriate, Pam will stop me right then and there, and we'll address those questions. It looks like we're a fairly small group today, so I think we can be fairly informal, and we'll have some opportunities to open it up just for your questions and you guys to be able to unmute and ask questions as well. But we do have a lot we want to cover. We want to make sure that you understand the platform, that you understand the diversity of resources in the platform, and that you understand how to use the platform to make assignments to students, what it's like from a student point of view, and then also assessing student work. So we've got a lot of basics to go over. The goal is to show you enough to get you interested, but to let you know that you're going to have homework to do. In other words, you're going to want to go in and you're going to want to try some searches on your own and really explore some of the other resources. But what I'm going to try and do is make sure you know how to do that and you have some of the strategies to find as much as you can. Also, with 2 hours today, we've got a lot to cover, but we should have a fair amount of time in order to get through everything as well as to respond to your questions that come up. We do prefer that you keep your microphones muted. We can have a few different periods where we'll open it up to questions and we'll allow you to unmute, but I'd like to be able to continue on and make sure that we at least cover the basics of the presentation. Once again, you can post a question at any time to the chat area and Pam will see that and she'll make sure that we get back to you at the appropriate time. So chat is the best place to work with that. If you can keep your cameras on, we love to see you. It's like being in a room together, just a little bit more friendly and collegial. So we hope that we can, you know, permitting, that works for you. Here's our agenda today. I want you guys to have a good sense of where we're starting and where we're going. So this counts as the introduction. We'll go in, we'll talk a little bit about the rationale for Active Classroom, why we developed it, what our goals are, what we think you're going to be able to find there. And then we'll give you an overview of the program and make sure that you know how to find some of the resources like the atlases and the different activities that are in there and the variety of different activities. About halfway through, we will take a short break to allow you to rest your eyes, go to the bathroom, whatever you need to do, grab a bite at this time of day, a little snack. When we come back, we'll have you log into your accounts. As Heather said, we're going to go in through the Clever interface. So it's been set up at the district level, and all of you should have accounts now. We've been working with your IT department to get them set up. If for any reason you don't find a link there in your Clever interface or you don't have an account set up, Pam will have a special code for you to create your own account today so that you'll be able to participate in the second half. The second half of today's session will focus a little bit more on you guys working through your own account. I'll sort of describe where I think you should be going, but the goal there will be to create this imaginary student, to find something to assign to that student, and then to log in as that student so that we really feel like we understand what the students are going to see, what you're going to see. You'll submit the work as the student, and then you'll be able to grade that. If for some reason we can't create your account or something doesn't work there, I will be walking through all of those steps, so you're welcome to follow along on my screen. So we like to give you the opportunity to learn by doing, but if for some reason there's problems, we'll address that at the time. So that gives us an idea of what we're going to be doing today. Let's talk a little bit about the platform itself. Active Classroom was designed as a library of different resources, different learning objects, we call them, in order to allow you to differentiate your instruction. And when I say differentiate, I mean it in two different ways. One, we know that teachers have different teaching styles, and we know that students have different learning styles, and students have different learning abilities or readiness levels. Yeah, better readiness levels than abilities, really. And so we wanted to create a collection of activities where if you like to lecture more, you'll have presentations that you can lecture from. If you want your students to be reading, or if you want them to do simulations, we've got some simulations in here. You can see the variety of activities that are included, decision-making activities. We've got readings at different lexile levels. Sometimes we have short videos, mapping activities, historical maps, image analysis. So it's really an opportunity for you to have a toolkit of activities that allows you to reach students in the different ways that they're going to be able to learn best. So I meant differentiation in two ways. One, differentiate in the terms of you can teach the way you want to teach with the types of resources that you want to use, and you can mix and match them the way you want to. And two, differentiation for the students, that we're going to have things for students at a variety of different readiness levels. There's different lexile levels for the readings. There's different ability levels for some of the different resources that are out there, and we're going to show you where to find all of that. I think that might be the end of that slide. Let me get out of this and come back to our home page. And okay, we'll jump right in, and I'd like to give you a tour. So for this part, just sort of sit back, watch me, and in the second half today, you'll have a chance to try some of this yourself. I've logged into my teacher account here, and I am seeing my different choices on the left-hand side here, as well as some recent activity that's coming up here in the center. I see that some students completed an assignment for me. Here, in this case, 2 different assignments, 2 different students. So this is an area where I'm getting up-to-date information about what my students are doing, and we'll show you later. You can just click on these, and it would take you right in to be able to assess that student work. But really, let's talk about the buttons over here. And I'm going to go through, I think, most of these today. Some will get a shorter attention than others. But where I'd like to start is with the atlases, because we have 2 atlases in your license, one appropriate for 4th grade and the other for 5th grade. If I click on atlases here, it'll take me into those 2 choices. Now, here's something really important that I need you guys to pay attention to right now. Read what this says up here. The atlas, this is your library, but your students aren't going to see the atlases unless you share them with them. You only have to do that once in the year, but the idea is here, I saw some of you are 4th, 5th grade teachers. You might want to add both of these atlases to your account because there's different ways that students might want them. In fact, probably most of you would want to add both of them because there are things in our country's history on westward expansion that are going to be relevant to Texas history. So the important thing that you need to do there is you click on this little share button for the atlases, and you'll have a chance to try this out in the second half today. That brings up an interface, and that shows me my list of classes or my individual students that I have in my account. So I can share that. Probably the best thing is just to share it with all of the different periods. You can see I've got different types of classes here, but if I wanted to share it with both period 1 and second period, I would go over here and then I would hit share down at the bottom. That would mean all the students in those classes would have access to the atlas. So that's going to be an important thing. What do the atlases look like? Well, let's go in here. We'll start with 4th grade, the Atlas of Texas History. And because Texas history does straddle both middle school and upper elementary, there might be some things in here that are going to be a little bit more difficult for your students, or that might require a little bit more explanation from you or some scaffolding. You might want to work with them together. There's going to be other things that students are going to find very accessible. What I like to do is I like to go full screen by clicking on the little button here in the center. That takes me to a full screen view, and then I'm able to click through the atlas. Now in this case, the atlas is really being used as a reference atlas. There's no specific activities that are tied to it right here, but this is something that you will have access to if you want the students, say you're beginning your unit on the first inhabitants, you've got that, and even the regions there. I think this is something that comes up very early, as well as the natural Texas. You could have the students go to this. So say we wanted to begin with natural Texas, geographic diversity. I can go up here and I can skip directly to that page from the table of contents. I see it's page 16. I type in 16 on the top, and it takes me right there to page 16. So this could be a nice supplement, in addition to however you're introducing topics to your students, to be able to give them a very visual introduction. Now, you're going to be working with your students, and these days, I don't know whether you're fully remote, sometimes remote, blended, but the nice thing about this is, say you were completely remote and your students were in their homes and you're working from your home or your classroom and you're projecting this for them. You could do something like what I'm doing with you right now, using Zoom or Teams or whatever you use to share content with your students, and we could go through this together. We can also like zoom in on certain areas and just focus in this area, and you know, sort of read through it together, look at these different areas, and it can function as a really nice introduction for the students to be able to go through and get the background that they need. Once again, highly visual, very up to date. This was copyright, I think, 2019. You've got these interesting Texas personalities are peppered throughout the atlas. So here you've got Beyonce and Mia Hamm here. So from a variety of different, so we've got George Bush, is that senior or junior? That looks like senior there. So you've got government people, sports people, entertainment personalities. Here's a Supreme Court justice, along with our road runners and the maps. So we think this is a great resource, and that you will really work nicely for you and your students, whether they're reading it on their own or whether they're using it as part of a larger collection of activities. The other one that we have here is the Atlas of our country's history. And so if I launch that, and this is a focus on sort of a little bit more 5th grade topics for US history, we can go in, and we've got also a sort of a chronological atlas here that goes through. Historical atlas, well, similar to the Atlas of Texas History, is going to be organized. This one specifically in terms of the different time periods. And so if we wanted to go in and say you wanted to use even this one for maybe something connected to 4th grade, we could go in here and say, you know, who explored the West? The United States expands. So here's the beginning on that westward expansion. And so I can go in here and I can go to page 40. And I've got a nice introduction. And then we can sort of scroll through and get an idea about the different here. We'll focus on the Oregon Trail and the Louisiana Purchase, the extension of the railroads, And you can see how valuable this is also in the 5th grade context, and especially in the 5th grade context, to have a reference that's so visual. So we highly recommend, once again, there's not specific activities tied to these atlases, but a great way to introduce a topic to the students in a way that's visually compelling. We're going to develop literacy skills for them. So this is not just about reading text, but it's also about reading, in this case, a pie chart, and sometimes there's a map, there's often maps, there's primary source images, there's graphs. So this is about literacy in the widest sense of the words, in the widest sense of the word, students being able to sort of read and extract information from a variety of different formats. And that's they are in your TEKS as something that we know is desirable for the students. So that was linking from your Atlas section here on the main page. And once again, you share those atlases just once at the beginning of the year with your students, and you guys can decide. The 5th grade teachers may not have any use for the Texas Atlas, so there's no reason to share it. The Texas teachers may want to just focus on that, or you can also add the US history. That's up to you. Okay, let's go in and take a look at our activities area. This is where we can search for and find activities, and we've got a variety of different search strategies. So I happen to know, say I'm looking for something and I want something, I won't even specify 4th, 5th grade, but what if I want to know, well, what do you have in here to teach my kids about Latino history, and how does that tie in with the history of the United States, or Texas in particular? So I can type in Latino here and look at, we've got now a number of different resources. These are readings, and I'll show you how to read through. Oh yeah, we've got all of our readings here. So we do have a series in here that we call Latino Heroes of the Civil War, and it focuses on specific individuals. And so I think this is something that would go across in both grades in a number of ways. Also, some Texas studies, level 2 and level 1. The Texas studies, we're going to go a little bit deeper into this in a minute, but the level 1 is really on grade level for the 4th grade students. The level 2 is a little bit more towards the 7th grade on grade level, but you might have some students that are capable of using the level 2 activities. And we're going to show you, when we're making assignments, you do have the option to assign some activities to some students and other activities to others. And so that gets at that differentiation idea that we talked about earlier. Okay, so that was an example of just a keyword search that goes into the database and is able to find a number of different things. I click on this little refresh arrow here to open things up. Now, another way that we can search is going into the advanced search area. We can go to a subject. Let's pick Texas Studies, for example. All of the eras and themes that come up are sort of straight out of your TEKS. Texas history, government and economy. Here's that wildlife and geography that we saw at the beginning of the atlas earlier, up through the different periods. And we can scroll down and see even more. Okay, so this is one way to be able to go in and search for the different eras. Let me just see here. Texas history. So I'm going to go to Texas history, Texas studies, click on my little magnifying glass, and it runs a search, and I get, in terms of Texas history on its own, I get a number of different readings here, and I can see I've got some level 1 and some level 2 activities. Look over here, you can see the Lexile level indicates that that level 2 is a little bit more sophisticated, requires a little bit more of the students. I can click on the Lexile column here, and it'll sort them in ascending or descending order. So if I'm a 4th grade teacher and I only want things that are on target, I can click on that Lexile level, go to that 800, and that's going to be on grade level for the 4th and 5th grade students. These other ones here at the bottom at the 1000 level are going to be a little bit more advanced for the students that are a little bit above level in terms of their sort of reading abilities and those types of things. Okay. So let's take a look at what does one of these look like. So I see this here. If I click on the title, it'll pop up a little window. It'll tell me a little bit about, this introduces the first people of Texas, including hunters and gatherers. It tells me it's going to be a reading, the grade level that it's suitable for, the potential duration, how many minutes would it take to complete this activity for students. Of course, that varies by student. And then we can actually go in and view this by clicking on the little eyeball icon. And so we come in here. Now, let's look at what's available. The student-facing materials here. We've got vocabulary. So this is all vocabulary that they're going to need to know. They can begin there, and then they can begin in on the readings and go to the different areas. So here, first people, a short reading, just a couple of paragraphs, couple more paragraphs on some of this background information, Native American customs, some basic facts, other natives in Texas, and then the beginning of Spanish explorers. Now that is basically, this takes us through, that's basically, I just scrolled through what is essentially this table of contents over here on the side. So here's all the content that's going to be available to your students in this lesson, and you can choose to assign all of it or just part of it, and we'll see that in a little bit. There's also review questions at the end of this, we'll call it a chapter, here we're looking at the review questions at the end. How many do we have? I think about 10 questions. Let's see, there's 7 there and another 5 there. So a total of 12 multiple choice questions to make sure that the students have comprehended what they're reading and that they're on target. Because these questions are multiple choice, if the students submit them electronically, they will be auto-graded. So that really is a convenience for you, and it makes it really very nice to be able to work with those. You can also say we were modeling this for your students. I can hide the answers and we could share this on the screen. So I just clicked on hide answers or show answers, and I have that choice when I'm in a teacher account. Now, when we actually go to a student account, which I'll show you later, we'll also have a turn it in button up here. They don't get to hide, they don't get to see the answers, but they do get to turn it in when they're done. So there's a few differences between the teacher view and the student view. Now there's some cool things down here in terms of some activities. And so here's a cool drawing activity, how to draw a buffalo that's sort of relevant to the time period and what they're studying. And I'm gonna try that one out. I've always had trouble drawing, and that makes it look like it's really pretty simple to do. How to make a pueblo dwelling. And in this case, they're able to download a handout and work with that. Let me try that. I click on that. It downloads a PDF document. So this might be something maybe that I would want to print out. And then look at this, you can color it in. So here's the pattern they would print out, and they would color it and glue it or tape it together. So it's a nice extra resource. So we've immediately, what we've seen here is that we've got an activity that includes some readings, as well as the review questions, as well as some sort of interactive activities to keep it sort of interesting for the students. And also here you've got vocabulary cards that you can download. The teacher's guide gives you sort of some implementation ideas. And here's that Pueblo dwelling handout. So the students would have these as well that they can work with. I haven't looked at the vocabulary cards. Let me try that. Click on that. And okay, so here's a nice little handout that the students can work on. You can reproduce these as many as you need for the students to be able to go through and find particular words and then identify their definitions. So a lot of nice resources there. Okay. Let me go back. I want to show you some other types of things, and then we'll show you some of the other features that are available. So we've done so far a keyword search. Let me get my thumb in the camera here. We've done the keyword search. We've done the search by subject area, where we did Texas studies, and then we did the subcategory of Texas history. We can also search for a particular series title. So if we know that a series like that Texas studies level 1, we can go in and find that. So here, what I'd like to do, I'm going to go back up here to Texas studies, and I'm going to go to level 1. Right? Because we said that's on target for 4th grade. This is going to show me all of the readings for Texas Studies Level 1. And you can see that they're organized in the order that you'd expect them to be in terms of how the TEKS are organized. You begin with geography, and then I think go to exploration, And we've got, let's see, there's 20 on that page and another 20 on this page. So there's 40 of these activities. Yeah, actually the wildlife is here. So they're not exactly in the order that the TEKS are in, but you can see that you've got these big categories of wildlife, history, government and economy, as well as geography. And I think those are the major, the major areas. Okay, so here's what did we just looked at one on the native peoples, but I know that you also do early in the year regions. So let's look at geography, the Northeast region. I can go in and take a look at that one. And I'm going to find here. So this one has also a mapping handout. So there, I really like that there's these sort of hands-on, tangible projects that the students can do. And even if you're not there face-to-face in the classroom with the students, if you're working with them remotely, hopefully they have access to a printer somewhere and they can go and they can print these out and work with them and do something that's a little bit hands-on. So they're not always in front of Zoom to consume their content. But this is looking at the regions of the United States. And then you've got that same structure, the review questions, and some assessments down below. So many of these, I've shown you now 2 activities from Texas Studies Level 1. And what you could begin to see is that they all take a similar structure. So you become familiar with, oh, those Texas Study ones, they're always going to have the vocabulary in the beginning, and then they're going to pick up those different areas that we want to go into. Now, in this case, I'm going to assign this one because I want to show you some other features that we have that we can do once we assign it. So you guys will have some practice doing this later on today. I pick a due date. I'll make this due this coming Friday. I'm going to unlock it today. Okay. Now, here are all the table of contents that we saw on the left-hand side here. You do not have to assign all of it. Maybe that's going to overwhelm your students. Maybe you just want to assign a couple of things to get them started. We're going to have them look at the vocabulary, and we're going to have them read about the Northeast region of the United States. And then they're not going to even have to deal with we'll assign the review questions next week or at a different time. And then I come down here and find, where's my demo class? Here's my demo class. And I can give the students instructions up here. Highlight the main idea in each reading. Okay, so we're going to use social studies as a way to develop English language arts skills, a close reading activity. So we're going to use this social studies content, but we're really going to ask them to be looking at a main idea. We also have the opportunity to ask them to look at supporting evidence. Well, how are they going to do that? Well, we got custom highlights here as well. So you can set custom highlights. Here are the main ones that come, the markers that come for your students. I'm going to take away this generic one, and I don't need this one. I might want to add one. Oh, here, yeah, vocab, I don't know. And we give that a color. Make it dark blue, and I'm going to add that. So now I deleted 2 of the highlights that came with it. I'm going to leave main ideas, supporting evidence, vocab, I don't know. Click done. Okay, I've got my instructions in there. You can choose to show the students the responses the minute that they submit something. It doesn't give them their grade, but it'll tell them whether they're right or wrong for the different answers. And I'm going to go down here and then save this assignment. Okay, so that's saved now. And I want to digress for a minute and show you the student point of view, because I do want to show you some of the tools that the students can use when they're in there. I'm going to go to student 1 here. So I've just logged into a student account, and you can see that it looks very different. Assignments and grades, atlases, I can see this is where I launch my atlases, and then I've got an online discussion. But they don't have all those other things like manage students and professional learning and the other things. So it's really very straightforward. Also, the students on their recent activity, they'll see, look at this lesson just came in from Aaron Willis. He's assigned me this activity and it's due on 9/25. So, I better get in there and do that. If I log in here, I just click on it and I'm now in my assignment. Here's that instruction that we put into it, right? I just click away and the instruction goes away. Like I promised you, because we're in a student account, I've got the turn in assignment here. I've got my vocabulary that it starts with. I don't have all those downloadables that we had before, right? That's something that we can choose to assign to the students, but we didn't want to confuse them now. And we just want them to focus on this region of the United States. So here it describes the area, and let's see if we can find something. Now I want to highlight things. Remember, one of the things I said, I should have put this more explicitly in the instructions, but was what vocabulary do I not understand? So say I see things here like airplane parts, transportation. Say I didn't know the word transportation. I can go ahead and highlight that. Now I've got a few things that I can do with words that I don't know. So the first thing I'm going to show you is I can launch this little toolbar. I go up here in the far right corner. It's called Enable Speech. It's going to allow it to read to me, but it also has a built-in little dictionary. So I've highlighted a word that I want to know more about. I click on the dictionary and it'll tell me that word, and it'll even read it to me if I need that. Okay, let me just go to my, oops, wait, I just lost myself there. Okay, I'm back, thanks. Let's see. Can we hear that, Pam, or do I need to toggle that on? Okay, I need to go back over here to share the computer sound. And so now should
transportation.
Okay, so it'll read it to me, and then I've got the description here.
Noun. The act of expelling a person from their native land. Men in exile dream of hope. His deportation to a penal colony. The expatriation of wealthy farmers. The sentence was one of transportation for life.
Okay, so that gives us a range of different uses for that. What other things can we do with that read aloud toolbar? We can just have it read aloud. We can click on this little area and highlight. Say we wanted to start reading here. We click on the little finger, click here.
The 5 regions of the United States are the Northeast region, the Middle West region, the Southeast region, the Southwest region, and the West region.
So that can read to us. I can turn that off by clicking on that again. What other support might we need? Maybe English is my second language and I'm used to Spanish, and it would be more helpful to me to be able to see this in Spanish or a native language, maybe Chinese or Arabic, wherever I might be from. I can highlight this whole first paragraph or the entire reading itself, and then click on my little world here. And here, then I could have it read to me in Spanish.
Estados Unidos es una gran área de tierra que se divide en 5 áreas o regiones. Cada región tiene.
So what we're looking at here are ways to support our students. Once again, I talked about different readiness levels. The digital platform really allows us to do some interesting things. The other thing,
Aaron?
Yes.
We did have a couple of people already in chat requesting that very feature or the ability to read in Spanish. So I just wanted to check and make sure everybody got that and didn't need you to repeat anything on there. How are we doing, guys? Did you guys all get that on the translating? Yeah? Good?
Just to review, I clicked on this little button up here to launch it. It hides it, launches it, hides it. It's called Read Aloud. It's right up here near the logout, and it's one of the features, and it includes that. Now, if you just hit play, it starts playing at the top and goes to the bottom. I use the little finger to read it from a specific area, and then the world translates it. The book does the definitions, and there's even a picture dictionary here. Now, if students need to change the language, maybe they do need Arabic support or Vietnamese support, we can go here to translations from English. Here, mine was set to Spanish, but look, I could choose Korean or Japanese or Italian, even some exotic ones like Burmese, Russian, Somali. So you've got about 20 or 30 different choices here, Chinese, Bengali, and the students control that for themselves. So the students set it, and for each student individually. Okay, I'm glad people were looking for that and they found it. The other thing I wanted to, we started on this big digression because I wanted to show you how to highlight something. So say that we did know a word that we're not sure about, northernmost part or something. What does northernmost mean? So I can go up here to my little highlighter and I can choose my highlight color, and here are those different highlights: main idea, supporting evidence, and vocab I don't know. So I can put that here and say, what does this mean? And you've got that in there. Now we've got an annotation in the text, and we've got some annotations on the side. And maybe this sentence I think is a main idea. So I'm going to go through here. And once again, we can model this for students. We can talk about it. This isn't something that students have to do on their own. You've got a lot of flexibility in terms of how do you work with students remotely, in person. You can be presenting this whole class. Students can be working in groups. Really, you've got a lot of flexibility in terms of how you implement it based on how you'd like to implement it. I highlighted this sentence and I want to now go and click on my annotation marker and say, hey, that's a main idea, and save that. And now these annotations are coming up here on the side. And you have the ability as a teacher to go in and see how each student has annotated the reading. So really, as an ELA tool, even though we're here talking about social studies, the idea that you can see the students in that process of close reading. What are the words they understand? Can they pick out main ideas? Can they pick out supporting evidence? Really gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of developing those student skills. Okay, I think those are the main things that I wanted to show you from this digression into the student point of view. You guys will have a chance to try that in the second half today. So let me go back and make sure that we all see the other things we need to before we take a break in about 10 or 15 minutes. Okay, I've done a lot of Texas history here, and I know we had mostly fourth grade teachers that were in earlier, but we do have a few of you that are teaching fifth grade, so that wouldn't be nice not to talk a little bit about US history as well and look at some resources there. So I can go here and I can reset this, and I can go in and say I wanted the subject US history, and the error theme, maybe colonial America. Let's start at probably where you guys are at the beginning of the year, and go in. And here, now you get to see a little bit more of the diversity. We've got Atlas activities. We've got a PowerPoint presentation. We've got some short videos. And we also have some readings here. And oh my, it's 20 per page, and we've got 6 pages. That means we've got more than 100 different learning objects for teaching about colonial America. And you can expand that out. You can get a better sort of idea of, hang on just a second. Just a second. We're going in here. We can expand that or limit it by media. So we can also, we've done US history, colonial America. We can also limit it by activity type. And that's where you see those symbols over on the side there under the results. This is what they represent. So you can say, oh, that's a historical mapping activity. That's an image analysis activity. Say we only wanted to find an image analysis activity. What do you have for teaching kids about colonial America? And you've got a lot. And here's a great series, History Unfolding. This is all based on images. So this is a great one for giving students, especially if their literacy skills are limited in terms of reading in English. Every student, whether they can read or not, can interpret an image. Let's go in and take a look at this one by clicking on View. And once again, the series is called History Unfolding. And we go here to our introduction. It gives a short background, and then we're going to be looking at a few different illustrations here that are going to be focusing on family and the church. So let's look at this one in particular. We have some background information. There's questions to scaffold the students through. So here it shows a quilting bee and it's explaining what it is, and then it asks a question. Remember, we're in teacher mode, so we're seeing the answers in green, but if we were modeling this for students, we could hide those answers and click back on the image. And then this is what the students see. They've got these boxes to fill this in. Now we give the students a few different tools. We know that working with primary sources, we want to gather evidence from a primary source. And so we're able to turn on our magnifying tool, just like a detective might gather evidence at the scene of a crime. We can turn on our little magnifying tool here and go in and look around. Oh, look at these little animals. These are like little dogs over here and maybe a cat. This one looks like a ferret a little bit. So they've got different types of animals, and we can go around the room and sort of really zoom in. That gives us one way to look at it. Another way would be to go to full screen. And so here we're able to go to a full screen image and look at detail. And remember, once again, my instructions to the students would be for them to look at the questions down below and then go to full screen. So in this case, this quilting bee shows one small part of the role women played in the family and in the home in colonial America. How would you describe the role of women in the colonial house? How do you think this drawing helps to illustrate that role? And so we would go in, and now we would turn on that full screen, and we'd go in and we know what we're looking for. So important to give the students that direction to read the questions first, then go into the content. We can also divide it into different quadrants. And this is another strategy for getting students to sort of do close readings of an image. Let's just look at the lower left corner or the lower right corner. And this is a great way to train students to sort of focus in on a particular area. And then maybe even you could have a jigsaw group where each students working in pairs each take a different quadrant to interpret and answer that question based on their quadrant. And then we bring the students back together and each group reports back on what was in their particular quadrant. So you've got some nice tools here that allow you to engage students with these highly visual images that are a great way to introduce a particular topic. Now, each one of these activities that I'm showing you is opening it up in another tab, which means if I want to go back to that activity search, all I need to do is click on my other tab. I don't need to do that whole search again. It's saved there for me. So I'm able to go in and take a look at that. Okay, so that's one type of thing. The other thing is I wanted to go in and look at, let's do this search again on colonial America. And I want to show you, I really like this. For those of you that are, I'm going to show you a different one, but I want to point these out to you here. This is from Colonial Williamsburg. They've got electronic field trips. I'd like to show you one that I always get a kick out of that's called The Balance of Power. And it's a little bit about that introduction to the formation of the U.S. Constitution and the idea of the separation of powers in our government. Before I go and show you that, I wanted to make sure you saw things like this, a math race and a science race. So even though this is a social science program, we've got ELA activities involved, there's math activities, there's science activities, there's a lot of ways to make connections between the different disciplines. Now let's go in here because this is one of my favorites, The Balance of Power. And the Colonial Williamsburg electronic field trips are sort of very well done, people dressed in period costume, and they try and introduce important aspects of United States history to students in a way that's going to be appealing to them, doesn't talk down to them, and tries to engage them and make connections to things in their real life. In this case, we're going to be looking at a baseball competition between the three branches of government, or really between the executives and the legislators, judged by the judicial branch. It comes with an introduction, a glossary, a timeline to give students some background information, and then video in 3 acts. Each video is about between 5 and 8 minutes long. So enough to engage students, but not too long to put them to sleep, hopefully. And I think that these are pretty engaging anyways. Once again, before the students engage in the media, just like with the pictures, they can look at the guiding questions down below, and they wouldn't have the answers there. So they'd see it like this. Why did John Adams try and appoint so many new justices at the end of his term as president? Would the Supreme Court have been able to force President Jefferson to deliver Marbury his commission? Why is Marbury versus Madison so important to the balance of power between the three branches of government? And all of this is going to be explained in a very fun, lighthearted way. Let's take 2 minutes and go in and look at what one of these videos might be like.
It takes strategy, skill, and the will to govern. Today, the three branches of government established by the Constitution take the field. We'll see the executive branch, the presidents of these United States, who carry out federal laws and recommend new ones. They direct national defense, foreign policy, and perform ceremonial duties. The powers of the president also include acting as chief law enforcement officer and vetoing laws. Welcome the commanders-in-chief, the presidents. It's the executive team. Also on the field, the legislative branch, the senators and members of the House of Representatives. Their powers and responsibilities include passing laws and taxes, creating spending bills, impeaching officials, and approving treaties. Introducing the members of Congress, it's the legislative team. And finally, the judicial branch, the federal and circuit courts and the Supreme Court justices. The powers of these judges include interpreting the Constitution, reviewing laws, and deciding cases involving states' rights. They are the umpires of today's game. The judicial branch. What happens when one branch of government tries to take control? Let's find out in The Balance of Power. Welcome to Constitution Stadium. This is going to be a very interesting game. I'm Jay Greavy.
And I'm Anna Green. These two teams, the legislators and the executives, always have a heated head-to-head game. They match up well with their given powers and strengths.
And let's not forget the judicial branch umpires who officiate the game. Their job to call balls and strikes and interpret the Constitution rulebook. This is what keeps the teams in check.
You're a right worship.
Remember, each branch has its own duties and responsibilities. This is called the separation of powers. And in order to make sure that no single branch takes control, the founders made sure that the Constitution had a system of checks and balances.
Okay, this is always one of my favorites to show. It's unfortunately always timely, and I think that that's a great way to introduce students to a connection back into the history of the United States that comes through right up to today and being very, very relevant. So that's from Colonial Williamsburg. We went from an early colonial like religion and family life up through forming the Constitution, and we've got a whole range of activities in between. So we saw there were a number of different Colonial Williamsburg videos that are done in a similar fashion, things on the Bill of Rights all the way up through the Civil War. This Colonial Idol is based on like American Idol, but there's colonial people from the period. Really also a wonderful one that I like to show. There's videos on slavery or even going back to Jamestown. So really a lot there to view. Okay. So that was an example of being able to search by U.S. history and going in and taking a look at one of those activities. Now, another thing that I'd like to show you is the Atlas of U.S. history. So here's an activity on the French and Indian War. And I can go in and take a look at this. These are also really nice because they're similar to the atlases that we have. Historical information, here's some background. Students click on the timeline in order to be able to, or we click on the expand timeline in order to be able to review the timeline and then be able to answer the questions that are here. Then we go into a section on people and cultures where we understand and we use a map. And map keys in order to understand the nature of the different people and cultures here, English speaking versus French speaking, British claims versus French claims, boundaries, and all of that is here. And we can see that we've got some of those answers embedded with the questions to scaffold the students through. History through maps, similar image with some questions, assessment questions for the students to go through. Time and change, this is a nice one because it really shows students how things change from 1682 up through 1754 and then 1763 as things are moving around, as people are moving around, and as the country is expanding and the different colonial empires and projects are expanding. Once again, I talked to you earlier about that importance of literacy in the largest sense of the word. Here we're looking at a chart and some text that explains something, and the students need to respond to those questions. So most of the questions here are what we call DOK level 1. They don't involve very sophisticated thinking, but they do allow students to engage with the content and then answer questions based on the readings or the images that they have there. Okay, so once again, this was an atlas of U.S. history activity. Okay, I want to show you one last series and then we'll take a short break. In this case, it's going to be related to U.S. history, but it's a series called Storytellers History. And this is a really fun one because this is the author of the Storytellers Histories was somebody who worked for 20 years as a textbook author. And he saved all the interesting anecdotes and stories that the big textbook companies wouldn't let him put into the book. It was too spicy, or it wasn't objective, or it seemed to express an opinion, and they wanted sort of, you know, the most basic, dull information that would offend the least number of people in their textbooks. So here's a way to teach students history, but from a sort of a little bit more fun way. Let's look at this one. Now there's 3 in here, 3 different books that are broken up into their different chapters, we could call them. One, King George, what was his problem? That's about the American Revolution. There's another one called Which Way to the Wild West, which might be applicable also for some of the Texas history teachers. And then a final one called Two Miserable Presidents, about the Civil War. Now these are really cool because they're a little bit sort of tongue-in-cheek and a little bit fun. Here's how to start a revolution. I think he does it in 13 steps. Everything your school books didn't tell you about the American Revolution. So here's a quick summary, and then let me just begin with a dramatic reading here. Let's pick up the action in 1750. Britain, France, and Spain have carved up North America into massive empires. You'd think they'd be satisfied, but Britain and France both wanted to see their names on even more of the map. Let's face it, they both wanted the whole map. It didn't bother them that most of the land actually belonged to Native Americans. We can go in and we can look at this change of the map in time in terms of who's there between 1754 and just 9 years later, how that map has changed. To Britain and France, it seemed like a good reason to fight a war. You can call it the French and Indian War or the 7 Years' War. Either way, the British won and Britain took over France's land in North America. For Britain, that was the good news. Step 2, here's the bad news. War is really expensive. The British were left with a mountain of debt, and now they had to keep a big army in North America to protect all their new land. That's not cheap. British Prime Minister George Grenville started thinking of ways to raise some quick cash. You can guess the idea he came up with, can't you? Then we go into some discussion of the Stamp Act. We go all the way through this. Nice different sections. Look at how small they are, nice and digestible little chunks of text for students. Once again, we can use the read aloud and the highlighting features with any of these. There's also some activities here at the end for the students to engage the students in sort of creative ways. So just about, I think every single reading or activity in Active Classroom has some form of assessment tied to it that's there. Okay, so that's from the King George, what was his problem, and Which Way to the Wild West, a similar one. Also sort of fun readings, short chunks of text here, easily enumerated sections. So how the West moved west in how many, and here he does it in 12 steps. So here's meet me in San Antonio, move to Texas. So even just a little thing here about that expansion into Texas presented in 4 short paragraphs. Okay, so those are some of the cool resources that are available to you. And remember, on this one, I did a search for U.S. history as a subject area, and then I went to the series title for Storytellers History. So we're going to give you guys some time to practice on this today when we come back from the break. What I'd like to do now is I'd like to give you guys a 10-minute break, and I'm going to do that. Not only would I like to do it, I'm going to do it. But here's what I really would like you to do. Before you go on break, see and make sure that you can log into your account, because Pam and I are going to be here through the break, and if for some reason you go into Clever and you can't log into your account, let us know and we can help you create an account. Pam, I'll tell you what, why don't you go ahead and post in the chat the little registration link. If somebody discovers that they don't have access to the platform, we'll go ahead and allow you to create your own account right now. So this is something I can't really show you on the screen because it's about how you guys log in there specifically in Dallas, but you go to your Clever Launchpad. Just quick show of hands that's familiar to you guys. You know where to look for the Clever Launchpad. Raise your hands. Okay, good. I see a few. Okay, good, good, good. For those of you that are on camera, that makes me feel better. So let's go and figure that out before you go and take your break. Because when we come back, I want you to log into your account so that you can really go in, dig in, and start playing around in here. You should be able to go into Clever, and there should be a little icon for Active Classroom, SSO, I think it says, and that should take you into your Active Classroom account, and you should end up looking at your home screen, which of course looks something like this.
I have a question.
Yes, that's Justin.
Yes, hi, 5th grade here. So on my home screen, I don't have the activity searches or the atlas. It just says assignment grades, managed students, discussion, usage reports, and professional learning.
Okay, great. Pam, can you make a note of that for Justin? Well, actually, Justin, we know how to fix that. Pam, I think that that's a problem with that he's not connected to the license. So that's something we can do for him over the break. So Justin, when you come back from break now, hopefully you'll be able to refresh and we'll have activities in Atlas for you. That's exactly the type of problem we want to solve right now. Thanks for letting us know.
All right.
What exactly am I looking for on Clever? I'm sorry, it must be a crazy question, but I don't.
Maybe one of your colleagues can explain that to you better than me because I don't have access to what your Clever screen looks like. Could somebody explain to Omar maybe what he's looking for? Do they go to—
What's the icon of the name?
It's Active Classroom would be the icon, and it's a little A.
So if you look under Instructional Tools, SSO, which stands for Single Sign-On, you should see an A. It's an icon that looks like an A. It's green and blue and orange, and it says Active Classroom SSO below it.
Justin, yours is fixed if you want to check that out.
Yeah, just refresh your page.
Hey, I got a question.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm writing my email, I write my Dallas ISD email, and I cannot say that my email already exists. So do I have to create a different email or?
No. That means your account was already created by the district. Did you go into Clever and try and find the Active Classroom icon?
Okay, and that's it. Okay, got it.
Right, so that's, you're good. You should be in there already, Angel.
Good, thank you.
Okay, awesome. Anybody else, any problems?
Yeah, I don't see anything.
That's Omar,
Yes.
See any? Okay, so you went into Active Classroom.
I'm
sorry, you went into Clever.
Yes.
You went to Instructional Resources.
Instructional Tools, yes.
Mm-hmm. And there's no little A there. Tell me what you do see there.
I see Brain Pop. I mean, there's everything you can think of. Ed for
Omar, when I did it, I went to activeclassrooms.com and I logged in through Google using my Dallas ISD credentials.
Okay,
and that worked for me.
Say that again.
I went to activeclassroom.com and then I used my login using my
Classroom.
I did the same thing, Mr. Cortez, because the icon is not clever for me as well. So I just did it through activeclassroom.com, and the link that is in the chat did not work for me either.
Right, no, you can't use that. That's only if you really don't have, it sounds like you had an account already set up. So you were able to get in, Ms. Garcia?
Yes, I did.
I got in.
Okay, good.
If you're unable, if you don't see the Active Classroom icon in Clever, make sure that you fill out a DISD help ticket and let IT know, and they'll be able to push that through to your platform as well.
Okay,
If you're
so I
not
see
seeing
that-
Active Classroom, fill out a help ticket.
I see that Emily was having difficulty with the same thing. So Emily, looks like you need to fill out those tickets as well.
Yeah, I logged in with my Google and it worked, but I don't have access through Clever.
Same here.
It's two separate processes. One, the process to create your account, and two, the process to connect your account in Clever. And it looks like the first one was very successful because you guys all have your accounts in there. The second one, it looks like we're still experiencing some hiccups with the district, and we should be able to figure that out. They usually always do.
This is the other Garcia, and I also had to go through activeclassroom.com. So got another Clever.
Okay.
So at least for the next activity, Erin, they can go through the web page to get to Active Classroom to look around, even though they can't go through Clever right now, right?
So,
Yeah.
and I'm making a note here and by the way, you guys, you've got 5 more minutes for our break. So if you need to go to the restroom or grab a snack or whatever, but please be back at 7 minutes after the hour. Because we've got a lot we want to cover and we want to make sure you guys can get in and play around in here. So I'm making a note that it seems like most of you did not have access to Clever. We can expand that out to assume that there's a bigger problem, and we will also contact your DISD tech people to let them know what we're seeing at our end.
Is Maria Wagner, is she part of the social studies department?
Yeah, she's going to tell you all about herself right now.
So I am the instructional specialist that supports grades 3 through 5.
Okay.
I'm relatively new to the district, so you may not have seen my face, but I'm here to help you and support you. I'm actually in the process of finishing up Unit 3 of the curriculum right now, which is why I'm not as active in our meeting tonight as I would like to be. But hi.
Hey, Maria, are we supposed to, like, I'm bilingual. We're supposed to have My Mundo also for social studies?
Yes, although that is a Pearson product, that's not Active Classroom. We are going to be having a My World Mi Mundo training. I believe it's this week. Let me check my calendar and I'll tell you exactly when it is. We're going to be having Pearson come and provide a training as well, and they'll be able to give you the ins and outs of that.
That's a Spanish language product, textbook?
It's our textbook in Spanish, basically. So yes, that Pearson My World Mi Mundo training is going to be from 4 to 6 this Thursday, the 24th.
24th, okay. This Active Classroom, we can connect it to Google Classroom, no?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
And when we're gonna, I'm gonna show you how to do that in a minute. Well, let's wait for everybody to come back. But
Okay,
Pam, make sure that I cover that in case I go too fast. I want to make sure that I show them the help page. There's a little video on the help page that shows you how to connect it in Google Classroom. And it's also part of like making an assignment that I want you guys to know about.
Okay, I'll be back.
Okay. See, if we keep talking to them, they'll never go on break.
Okay, here is me. I
Welcome
just got
back.
a quick question. I want to assign some pages for the students to read through through my Mi Mundo and CISO, but for some reasons we have to do a lot of clicks to get Mi Mundo in Espanol.
Right, that's because it's a Pearson product and they're not as good of a company. No. Marie, I'll let you address that one.
So if you're having connectivity issues with Mi Mundo, my suggestion would be to come to the training this Thursday. We're going to have a presenter who will be able to go through all of the ins and outs of Google Classroom with you and hopefully simplify that process. Okay, I'll be patient. I already have some activities that I want my students to do, but we click on Dash and the textbook appears in English. So they have to go more clicks to get to Mi Mundo.
So I want to know if there is a quicker way to get to my mundo, my world, sorry, with less clicks.
There likely is a quicker way to do that. I actually am still waiting on getting access to Pearson as well. Otherwise, I would offer to help you after this, but I don't have access to the online resource yet. So again, that meeting on Thursday, I'm sure that the presenter will be able to support you with that. And then once I get access, I'll be able to support you as well.
Great. Do we have to register for Thursdays?
I believe Heather Marvel has sent out an email with that information.
Yes.
You received it, Angel?
Yes, there is an email. You raised it for today and for Thursday. Thursday from 4 to 6. Today was from 4 to 6 also. It is.
Oh, okay. Now that you mention it, I think I read that. It's in the same email.
Yeah, about 3 o'clock today. We just received that email.
Thank you.
I believe our break time is over, Dr. Willis. I'm going to hand it back
ready to
over
go,
to
and
you.
everybody's
Yes.
back. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you.
If I'm going to assume that everybody made it into their account, and we will report the problems with Clever, but at least you guys know how you can get in now. Of course, your students should be able to log in with Clever as well, but we need to make sure that they're set up properly. So we're going to report this to the SD tech people. Okay, so at this point, what I'd like you to do, I'm going to try and speak more slowly than I normally do, and walk you through the ability of creating a fictitious student and then searching for an activity and assigning that to the student so that you feel comfortable going through that process. I've shown you a little bit about how to set up your atlas. We've looked at some of the different types of activities. How do you search for them in different ways? What's a mapping activity look like? What do the readings look like? What's an image analysis activity? We saw the videos. So we've got a sense of the variety of media. Now is the time to sort of go in. So you guys all should be looking at a blank screen. It probably doesn't have any of these assignments there, so I'll close those out, and you can always delete them. By the way, on this screen, if you go to the bottom of this screen and you start to have a lot of notifications, you can always delete all the notifications on the page by just clicking that button at the bottom. So now that cleaned that up, and I've just got sort of my basic information. Each month we're going to be posting new information, and here's a new lesson that we did, probably more at a high school level, so not as appropriate for you guys. But here, leveraging Active Classroom for blended and remote instruction was a webinar that happened a week or two ago. You can watch the recording of that. So we try and keep you up to date with new things happening in Active Classroom here. What I'd like to do now is I'd like to go into the Manage Students area. So I'm going to click on Manage Students, and I want you guys to do that as well. If for some reason you were not able to get into your account, just follow along with me so you are able to be exposed to this. If you are able to get into your account, click on Manage Students. It should take you to a page. And does anybody have any classes already set up in there? Let me see, show of hands. Yeah, okay. And is it your one class? Can you click on the name of the class, and it should show you the students that are in it. And tell me if those are your current students. Those look good. I see from Omar and Rosie, that looks good. Okay. Anybody else? Emily says thumbs up. She's got her students in there. So that's part of this rostering process. We're getting your classes and your students from the IT department. They're sending that over to Active Classroom. And say a student leaves tomorrow, by the next day, they'll be out of your Active Classroom class as well. And a new student comes in, you don't need to add them in. They'll be automatically added in. Okay. Okay, so those are your students. Let's try something else now. I'm glad you're able to see that. Let me minimize this. Okay, you can also click on the Students tab. We start with the Classes area, but you can go to the Students area, and then you should see a full list of all of your students there. I have all these boring students with names like student 30 at willis.edu. Hopefully you have more interesting names in your class. Now, You should never really need to edit a student. This is an area where you could change a password for a student, but you're not going to need to do that because the students, what are they going to be logging in with? Remember, they're going to be logging in through Clever with their, it sounds like you guys use all Google credentials as well, so they're going to be using their email and their password that they use for every other district resource, and they can log into Clever and then click on that active classroom icon, or if for some reason we're still having a problem and it's not in Clever, they can log in the same way that you guys did today with your district email. But let's do this as opposed to assigning something to one of your existing students. Let me know if you guys can go and register a new student. And I'm going to click on that button right up here. I'm looking at my students page. I'm going to register a new student, and it brings up first name, last name, this little modal button window that says register new student. So try and create a new student, name it after a loved one, an animal, children, whatever you like. Do not use a real email address, just use an imaginary one. It just needs to take the form of an email address, but we're not sending anybody emails now, so just make up an email address to put in there, but you've got to confirm it. And create a password that you can remember. Pam likes to use password as a password. Sometimes I use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is just to create the sample student so that we can test creating samples. Is there a question there? Okay, so go ahead and do that. Now, do please, when you have to select a class, make sure you have to put that new student in one of your classes. You won't see the student unless they are in one of your classes. And I think you guys probably just have one class anyways. So make sure to use that pull-down menu to get them in a class. And I'm going to give you guys a minute to do that. Okay. Thumbs up if you've created your imaginary student. I don't see any thumbs ups. Oh, wait, there's a couple there. Justin and Esther, nice. John, how's that working for you? Are you able to get your imaginary student set up? Go ahead and unmute if you want.
I'm sorry, I'm just going to follow you. Like I'm having problems, so I'm just going to watch what you're doing.
Okay, very good, very good.
All right.
Thanks for letting me know. Okay, anybody else we should be waiting for? You guys are, who has an imaginary student? Let me see again, another thumbs up. Because what I'd like to do next is have you assign something to that imaginary. Okay, good, good, good. Omar, do you have an imaginary student? No, you're not going there. How about you, Angel? You're just following along? Okay. We can stay on afterwards as well, and go ahead and speak if you'd like.
No, I can see your app in Clever.
Say that again?
I can't see your app in my Clever screen, really. I researched it and did all kind of stuff, but I can't see your
okay, but were you here at, right, but were you here at the beginning of the break? We talked about you can just go to activeclassroom.com and you can log in with your Google credentials there.
Okay.
I think some of your colleagues did that if you want to go there, but you can still, you know, follow along here. So, okay, you created your imaginary student. Now in your list of students here, you have all of your regular students as well as your new imaginary students. Yes, a question. No, okay, I won't stop for a question then. Okay, now that we've got our imaginary students set up, I'm going to go back and I'm going to search for an activity and I'm going to assign something to those students so that we can then try logging in as a student. Okay, I'm going to click on my A to go back here to my main page. And then I'm going to click on my activities search. That's the little magnifying glass. Okay, and I see a number of different activities here, you guys. I did all these searches already. It remembers all the searches that I did. I'm going to start fresh. Hey, fourth grade teachers, look at this first one that comes up here. Acting history plays the Alamo. This is like a reader's theater type of activity. So that could be an interesting one for you guys to take a look at. But it doesn't have an assessment, and I want to do one with an assessment. So here's what I'm going to do. I'd like you to go to the advanced search, go to series title, that's the third filter down, and scroll down to P. There's something I want you to see here called Power Basics ELL Readings and Assessments. And I'm going to click on that and do a search. And the fourth thing that comes up for me is called Framing the Constitution. Well, you know what? Let's do something that applies as well to 4th grade and 5th grade. Let's do westward expansion. So I'm going to go here, say I already looked at it, and I know I want to assign this. Okay. I can favorite it, and I can come back and search for favorites later. I click on the little profile to assign it, and it brings up the assignment modal window, we call it. Now, say I don't want to assign all of the table of contents, but I don't remember, is that what I want in the Northwest Territory? I can click on it and it'll pop up in a little window there for me, and I can see the reading and I can see the questions that are included. So that's a little bonus when you're here in the assignment modal window. If you don't remember the content, you can always click on anything in the table of contents and it'll actually roll it out for you. Okay. In this case, I'm only going to assign the section on Manifest Destiny. So I click Manifest Destiny. I'm going to set a due date. Once again, I'll give the students through the end of the week. And then an unlock date. Now, I'm not going to do any custom highlights. I could put in student instructions here. Why don't you guys try that? Complete the reading or something like that. And highlight the main idea and answer the questions. Okay. I've clicked on show students the correct responses after submitting. Now, I didn't select who I want this to have. Am I going to assign it to a whole class? Is this going to go to all of period 1 or just an individual student? So I think we should just assign this to your imaginary student right now. So go down here. And I've got a lot of students. So find your imaginary student. Here's student 1. And I'm just going to assign this to student 1. So you guys click on the Students tab in that assignment modal, find your imaginary student and assign it to them, because we don't really want to assign this practice lesson to any of your real students. If we do, it's okay. We can always delete it later, but we want to be able to log in as that imaginary student, and we need to know the username and password in order to be able to log in. Okay, then I'm going to click Save Assignment, and I'm going to stop right there and launch my video window again. So show of hands, how many of you were able to assign a lesson to an imaginary student? Rosie's got a thumbs up there. Awesome. Angel's in. Great. Okay, so some of you are doing great work. I'm so pleased. Okay, so now that's been assigned. Now, what's on my screen right now? When you finish an assignment, you get this well done, your assignment has been saved, and you also get this link, a direct link here. So when you guys asked earlier about Google Classroom, here's the link to the assignment that you just created that you can now put into Google Classroom. Okay, so you go to Google Classroom, you say, I want to add an activity. It's going to ask you to sort of give it a name, give it a description or instructions. And then if there's a URL, it'll have you put that in. And then you save that in Google Classroom. The students then, when they come in, they can click on that. I think it even gives them sometimes an email in Google Classroom that they can click on. It takes them right into your class. They click on the link, and it should take them right over into that assignment. So that's what this link is exactly for, working with things like Google Classroom or other applications where you want to make a direct link to that particular assignment. Now, in this case, I wouldn't put this in Google Classroom because it really only is for that one student that we assigned it to. We didn't assign it to the whole class. So we only assigned it to one student. So I probably wouldn't put that in Google Classroom because the other students, if they clicked on that link, will get a "you don't have permission to view this" type of error. Okay, good work. Now, I'd like us to log in as our student to see what it's like to complete an activity as a student. Now, everybody watch my screen for a minute and make sure, if you know, we can create an incognito window. That would allow us to stay logged in as a teacher, but also to log in as a student. How do we do that? We create another window. I'm going up here right under the X to close out my Chrome browser. There's 3 little dots like a vertical ellipse. If I click on that and go down, it gives me an option to create an incognito window. That's got this black outline. It's all sort of black in the URL and stuff like that. And now, if I go to activeclassroom.com, and I'm typing in activeclassroom.com, I can log in as my student. I can use that email and that password. This is your imaginary student. And so go ahead and log into that account. Now, if it gets too complicated for you and you don't know how to do an incognito window, I don't want that to distract you. You can also just log out of your account and then log back in as the student with your imaginary student.
Okay.
So I'm going to do this. I've got a little shortcut that I can take. So when I log in, here is what my student account looks like. Remember, you know you're in a student account if you only have a couple of options over here on the left-hand side. I'm going to take a break for a minute and let you guys get logged in. Pam, anything in the chat or any questions that I need to address or anything you'd like me to go over again?
Oh, all I'm seeing so far in chat is super excited people who are getting their classes created and are feeling good about Active Classroom.
Okay, that's what I like to hear.
I do have
Isn't
a
it?
question.
I love it.
Okay, go ahead.
So do I have to register the students for the Active Classroom? Or how does that work?
No, that's going to come automatically, just like we have an account for you. It's coming from your student information system. So all of the teachers that were able to get into their accounts were able to go to manage students and see that their class was already there with their current list of students in there as well. So that's going to be Active Classrooms talks to, I think you guys use Infinite Campus or no, Power School or something like that, right, as your student information system.
Okay.
And those two talk to each other. And so that's updated every day. New student comes in into your roster. Also, they'll be on your Active Classroom roster. Student goes out next Friday. They move to another district, another school. They'll be automatically out of your classroom. So you don't need to manage passwords for students. You don't need to manage access for students. It really makes it a lot easier.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Any other questions before we go into the student account?
I just went in.
Okay, you guys are doing great. I'm going to show you, I'm in my student account now. I'm hoping that you guys are as well. And the first thing I see here under my recent activity is I've got an assignment called Birth of a Nation, Westward Expansion, has been created by Aaron Willis, and it's due on 9/25. Wow, I better get on that today. I like to get my assignments out of the way right away. Remember, I'm a student, so I'm only seeing a few things over here. I can click on that link and go right in. Hey, there's those instructions that I wrote into the assignment when I was creating it. And one other thing to notice is, look at, there's no table of contents today. Remember, there were like 10 different readings that I could have picked on Westward Expansion, and I only picked the one on Manifest Destiny. So I'm only seeing that little reading on Manifest Destiny, and then a couple of questions that are there as well. Okay, here is a think about it question. As settlers moved westward, they took land already occupied by Native Americans. As you have learned, this made Native Americans very angry. Often they would refuse to leave and would instead fight for the land. Imagine that you had been asked to help these two groups work out their difference. What kind of a compromise might you offer? So the students might need to write a narrative here, and sort of like a short answer. I would ask them to compromise. Maybe they could pay them money. Just throw that out there. I don't want to put any politics into this. And then we've got some true-false questions. So a nice short reading with a few quick assessments to see that the students are engaged. I filled in my one section, my essay or my short answer. I filled in my multiple choice questions, and I am now ready to turn in my assignment. So for those of you following along in your own browser, complete the assessments and then turn in the assignment so we can see what that's like from a student point of view. I'm clicking on turn on assignment now. It says, are you sure you want to turn it in? You're not going to change or add anything after it's turned in. So I confirm that. And then it reloads my page and it tells me that this was turned in on September 21st, 2020. In this case, I'm in Pacific time zone, so 3:27 p.m. Yours will say 5:27. And here it shows me what my answers are and what I put into the system. Okay, I didn't do any annotations in this case. And so that is what it looks like from a student point of view. Okay, I'm going to wait a minute. Cam, I'm going to ask you to monitor a show of hands. Were people able to complete and turn in their assignment as students? I can't see, so I'm relying on you for my eyes.
One has so far.
Okay.
2.
That's awesome. I'm going to give you guys another 2 minutes then to complete this process before we go back and say, hey, let's look at this from a teacher point of view.
Hey, Aaron.
Yes.
Are you guys recording this at all?
We are indeed recording it.
Okay.
You'll have a chance to come back and relive it as many times as you like. I don't know if that's good for your mental health, but okay. Okay, does anybody want me not to go back to my teacher account yet? Are we ready for the next step? Speak now or hold your peace. Okay. So what I'd like to do is, if you guys were successful and you opened up your student account in your Incognito browser, you can toggle over to your teacher browser and you should be able to be there and be able to go right in and see what it looks like from a teacher's point of view. So go back to your teacher view. It might be going down to the bottom of your screen and looking at the two different things that you have there. Here's my student view, here's my teacher view. And so as a teacher, I can see that student 1 has completed my assignment. All students have completed my assignment. And so if I click on this, instead of taking me into the assignment, it's going to take me into the assessment platform. And here it auto-graded the true-false questions. I got 2 out of 3 right. And then here is the compromise idea. And here's, it's sort of open. Its answers may vary type of thing, but maybe certain students are going to suggest a region reserved for Native Americans. So that was one idea that came up. And so I have a choice now to give the student full credit for this answer or partial credit. Partial credit is by clicking on that little circle in the middle, or no credit at all by clicking on the little X. And you can see that the score up here in the grading area changes depending on what I select. So I've now given myself 3 out of 4. Now, that question was a little harder. The essay question, the short answer question, I could make that worth 2 points. And now I've got 4 out of 5. Maybe that more accurately reflects the, but that when you change the value of the points for an activity, that changes it for all students, not just this one student. But I think that's fair for what we've done here. So I can see here I've got a score of 4 out of 5, and this is what's going to go into your grade book. Whatever's in that grade column is what goes into your grade book. You can change that. I can make it a letter grade, an A- or a B+ or whatever that would be. I could turn it into a number. So however you like to keep your grade book, you can transform that score into the format of the grade that you want. Now in this case, I can also see that I turned it in, or that the student turned it in, you know, at September 21st at 5:27 p.m. Okay. And I've got this view. If I ask students to highlight the activity, this is where I would go to view the activity from the student point of view, and I would be able to see any of the highlights that they have. So that'll launch it in another window. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys a minute to just explore the grading interface here. Try changing some of the numbers, changing some of the values, changing the grade that's going to go into the grade book. And then I'm going to show you about giving them another attempt and what it looks like to go into the grade book itself. Okay, I'm going to give you a couple minutes. Any questions? Okay. Okay, so let me show you a few other things in this grading interface. If we go to select this select students, I only assigned it to one student, but I could have a whole list here. It shows me that that student not only turned it in, but I've also already graded it. So that's a great way to keep track of students' activities and grades. If I want to allow this student to go in and maybe fix his answer for this last one here, I could say try again and give them a little note on that one and give them a new attempt. And it's already set up here, and all I have to do is save it, and I can set a new due date or I can leave it open, and now the student will be able to go back in and save it again. Okay, it'll take away this turned in component.
Do they get a notification that they have to do it again?
I think so. Let me try that. I'll go over here to student 1. I'll log in. And it just said, your teacher, Erin Willis, has given you another chance to complete the assignment. So they get a notification right there. Yep, really cool, huh? Nice. Okay, wait, I wanted to not be here. Let me go to assignments and grades. So here's another way to get in here. And I'm gonna grade, I'm grading the westward expansion. So I clicked on assignments and grades. I'm going back into grade because I wanted to show you guys the grade book. And hey, look what happened. I went back in here. It shows it's not turned in yet, right? Because I allowed him another attempt, and that new attempt button isn't there. Also, it shows up here that that hasn't happened. Now, what I'm not sure what happens is, let me see what's in my grade book. I did that 80 go into my grade book. Well, here's the lesson. Yeah, so the 80 is still in the grade book unless I change it. So that gives you an idea of what the students did. And also you'll be able to see in the grading interface, it'll show you what was the student's most recent answer and what was their previous answer. So if you do allow another attempt, you can see the last 2 attempts that they've done and what their answers are. So you can see here's my grade book. And I've got all my different activities here across the top. I've got all my students down here across the side, and then I can export this data. So the grading doesn't talk automatically to your student information system, but you can at any time export an Excel file to be able to record that information. You may be able to bring it into your PowerSchool interface or maybe you need to translate it into it. I'm not sure exactly how that works in your district. Okay, quick show of hands. How many of you were able to grade your student work? Okay. Rosie, we haven't been able to throw anything at you today that you haven't been able to do. We're really impressed. That's so awesome. Justin, also a little thumbs up there. Cool.
Thank you. I have a question.
Yes.
I just discovered that there are graphic organizers as well.
Mm-hmm.
And just wondering if, do you have these resources in Spanish as well?
The graphic organizers are probably not in Spanish, I'm sorry to say. Of course, I showed you how they can translate any of the readings or the instructions that are in the activities, but unfortunately, I don't think the graphic organizers are. But graphic organizers should be mostly graphic anyways, right? So that's probably easy if you could just explain a few of the things on there. There isn't like usually a lot of text. So that was in a Power Basics activity. You downloaded the graphic organizers from that. Those are some nice ones. Yeah, they're very helpful.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks for asking that question. I'm sorry that wasn't exactly the answer you wanted to hear.
It's okay. We can still use them.
Okay, good.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, listen, I think what we've done here, maybe we'll have a few minutes. I know it's late in the day for you. I just want to show you one or two more things. Why don't you guys come back together? Let's have everybody watch my screen now for the last minute or two. And I just want to make sure that you know that everything that we've talked about today is covered with short videos and a user's guide that's linked from the help page. Now the help page you can access by clicking on this little question mark over in the top right corner here, or clicking on the vertical ellipse on the left-hand side here and coming all the way down to help. And the help page includes a couple of different things. One is we do have a user's guide for teachers, and this describes all of the things that we've gone over today. How do I make an activity? How can I print activities? How does that read aloud work? I'm going to click on the read aloud instructions. It flips to this section in the book. It shows you, oh, here's that read aloud toolbar. Here's where you launch it from. Here's what each of the different buttons does. So it gives you in a highly visual way an explanation of what we've just seen. Okay, the students also have a user's guide. Theirs is only like 14 pages, very, very short and to the point. In addition, and you've got access to what the students would see, the user guide for students, so you can see what they see if you need to explain something to them. Also, there's all these video tutorials. You know, how do I create activities? How do I build a quiz? I forget how Aaron showed us how to translate activities. Click on Translate Activities. You can click on the little play button here.
Active Classroom has built-in translation tools. Click the Settings gear on the Text-to-Speech toolbar. Then click Translations on the left.
Okay, so that gives us an idea about like short little videos that we can see. Here's the student help videos. This is what the students will see on their help page so that you can also have access to that. How do I save my answers? How do I annotate an activity? All of those types of things. And then for those of you earlier who were asking about Google Classroom, here's a short little video that shows how to link Active Classroom and Google Classroom. And once again, this is listed on your teacher help page. Okay, the last section I want to show you today is the professional learning area. This is an area that provides great support for you, creative ideas. We have a series of micro credentials. These are like 15-hour mini courses that allow you to become an expert in different areas. So here's teaching students to use evidence in grades 3 to 5. Looks like a perfect one for you guys. And this is a self-paced course. You guys can download these. They're little PDFs, and you can see what that's all about. Essentially, you run through a course, you do some readings, and then you implement some of the ideas with your classroom. You write a reflection, and then upon successful completion, you get a little certification that you are now a C3 Dimension 3 certified teacher on using evidence in grades 3 to 5. So I know that most of you are not social studies specialists. Here's a great way to really bone up your social studies skills in a way that doesn't take too much time. We also have self-paced courses. Active Classroom 101 and 102 should be in your account, as well as webinars that are offered on a weekly basis. So what's an upcoming webinar? This is tomorrow. Look at that, tomorrow afternoon. Make distance learning a success, online best practices for online instruction. That sounds pretty relevant these days. And then also in this really charged political environment that we're going into an election year with all sorts of stuff going on, look at this one for holding space for dissent in online classrooms. And all you have to do is register for this. I think they're little Zoom presentations. They usually take place, I think, around 5 o'clock Central Time. So you should be out of school, and it should be before dinner, hopefully. And they're about 20 to 30 minutes of a presentation from a nationally recognized person, and then some opportunity for questions and answers. So these webinars then are recorded, and if you miss one of them, or if you see one that happened already last week, like encouraging civil discourse to discuss controversial topics in the secondary classroom, this was last week, you'd be able to click on that and watch the recording of it. Okay, so look at all of these recent things, webinars that we've had, and the list goes on and on. So I do encourage you, for those of you interested in developing your social studies expertise, to look at our micro-credentials, the self-paced courses, Active Classroom 101 and 102, as well as the webinars that are upcoming on a regular basis. Okay, at this point in time, I'm going to take a break for a minute and open it up to open questions and a little bit of an opportunity for you guys to continue to explore on your own if you wanted to go back and try some searches. So let's first start with any questions? We've covered a lot today, so I know it's a little overwhelming. Pam, is there anything in the chat area that I need to pay attention to?
I have a question.
Yes.
When I was doing the student one, I totally, what did I do? There was something about, you remember when you did the highlighting, like
right.
Yellow and blue? You did that before you sent it to the kids, right?
That's right. That was when I was setting the due date and selecting which students or which class to go to. There was a little button that said custom highlights in that interface, and that's where I change it.
Okay, I gotta remember that.
Right. Now, if you don't change it, they'll automatically get the 4 default highlights, which are main idea, supporting evidence, geographic feature, and just highlight in general. But if you wanted to create a custom one, that's the time to do it. Good question.
I remember you can go back to your teacher's guide on the help page and see the directions explicitly for that too.
Oh, awesome. Thanks. Yeah, it says, how do I make an annotation? How do I customize my annotation? There might even be a little video on that too. Awesome. Okay, I'll tell you what, Pam and I are going to stay on here through the end of this session for another 15 minutes. We'll be available to answer questions. If you guys are available to stay on and you want to try like just searching for some different things and seeing if you have any questions, or maybe assigning the atlas to your students, if there's anything that you'd like to do there, we'll stay here and help you. Pam, can you post the evaluation link in the chat area? So Pam's going to post a link to an evaluation in the chat area. If you guys, before you're done today, could just take a minute to complete that evaluation, it really helps us know what's working for you, what's not working for you, what do you still want to know more about. We will have the level 2 workshop, I think, coming up in a couple of weeks. We'll have 2 opportunities for level 2 for grades 4 and 5, and that's a chance to revisit after you guys have had a chance to try this out with your students. We'll talk about things like using the online discussion forum and some other types of features, as well as being able to answer your questions, like I say, after you've been playing around in there a little bit. So, but if you can give us an idea here in the evaluation as to things you'd still like to know more about, that'll also help us prepare better for that next session. So we're going to stay online here. We're happy to stay as long as you want to stay, but you guys are free to go whenever you like.
I think. Yes.
Oh, I see those sessions. Thanks, Pam, on October 8th and October 22nd. Same. Oh, those start at a different time then, huh? 5 o'clock instead of 4. Maybe, maybe not. Okay, consult the district for the time on those because they're different times for the different grade. Okay, it's 4. Okay. The 5 o'clock, you'd probably be in a 9 to 12 session. So that'd be a different thing altogether.
All right, that's it.
Okay, we will let the district know that people have been having problems with the Clever and not seeing that, but if you want to let them know as well, that'll get them on it.
Okay. Hi, guys.
Okay, thanks so much for coming out today. You guys all did a great job. I know it's not always easy to follow along, but I was very impressed.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Have a nice evening.